She walked into the garage, crying mascara, running, whispering, "They're saying you're a liar, Dad." All because of one man's viral laugh. I held her while the rage burned slow and steady inside me. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's about what happens when a father finally stops staying quiet. The garage light buzzed overhead, weak and yellow, like it was as tired as I was. 11:47 p.m. I just finished 14 straight hours, oil changes, brake jobs, a transmission that fought me every inch of the way. My hands still smelled like brake cleaner and old grease. I slumped onto the rolling stool behind the counter, the one with the cracked vinyl seat, and pulled out my phone to wind down. Just a quick scroll before I locked up and drove home to Avery. That's when the algorithm decided to gut punch me. Reid Langford's face filled the screen. Live. Smiling that same easy winning smile he'd had since sophomore year, when he could talk any girl into the bleachers and any teacher into extra credit. Except now he was sitting in the driver's seat of a matte black Porsche 911 Turbo S, the kind of car that costs more than my house and my garage combined. The caption burned across the bottom. "Real talk tonight, boys. Some people never leave the small time." He laughed low, casual, like he was sharing a joke with old friends. "You know my buddy from back in the day? Sawyer Kane. Still running that little hole-in-the-wall shop on Maple Street. Same rusty lifts, same cheap aftermarket parts. Hell, I've had customers come to me saying Sawyer swapped in knockoff rotors that lasted 3 months, 15 years, and he's still scamming folks with junk. Sad, really." He shook his head, almost sympathetic. "Some guys just stay stuck. Me, I moved on. Built something real. You want quality? You come see me." The chat exploded. Hearts, fire emojis, people typing LMAO and exposed, and who's Sawyer Kane in a flood that made my thumb freeze. I stared at the view counter ticking upward. 10,000, 20, 40. By the time I refreshed, it was pushing 120,000. My name, my garage, my life's work. Reduced to a punchline on a stranger's live stream. I felt the air leave my lungs like someone had yanked a plug. Reid kept talking about his new showroom, his sponsorship deals, how he helps real mechanics now. Every word was a blade twisting deeper because I knew the truth he left out. We'd been brothers once. Shared lunches in the auto shop class. Split a six-pack after graduation. When Mara got sick, he was the one who drove me to the hospital at 3 a.m. and sat with me in the waiting room until the doctor came out with the word terminal. And then he disappeared. No calls, no texts. Just gone. Until tonight. I set the phone down, hands shaking. The garage felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Tools hung on pegboard shadows like silent witnesses. The old radio in the corner crackled static. I heard the front door creak. Avery stepped inside. Her backpack hung off one shoulder. Mascara streaked down both cheeks. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there breathing fast, eyes wide and red. "Dad?" Her voice cracked. "They're saying it at school? All of them. That you use fake parts, that you're ripping people off." Tyler posted the clip in the group chat. "Everyone's tagging me, calling me the daughter of a liar." She dropped her bag. It hit the concrete with a dull thud. I tried to tell them it's not true. I tried, but they just laughed harder. She looked at me, then really looked, and I saw something break behind her eyes. The same look Mara used to give me when the chemo made her too weak to pretend anymore. I stood up, slowly, legs heavy. I crossed the garage in 3 steps and pulled her into my arms. She buried her face in my shirt, still smelled like motor oil and sweat, and sobbed like she was 6 years old again, like the world had just told her Santa wasn't real. I held her tight. Didn't speak. Couldn't. Because inside my chest something was burning. Not rage, not yet. Hurt. Deep old hurt that had been sleeping for years. 15 years I'd poured into this place. Every late night. Laughing in the passenger seat of my old F-150, wind in her hair, sunlight catching the freckles on her nose. The day we found out Avery was on the way, I stared at her smile, the one that used to make everything feel possible. My thumb hovered over the screen. I felt the shift inside me like a gear finally catching after years of grinding. Quiet. Certain. I locked the phone, set it face down on the desk, looked at Avery. She was wiping her eyes, trying to be strong for me. I reached over, brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Hey," I said softly. "You believe me right about the shop, about everything." She nodded fast. "I know you're not like that." "I know." "Good." I stood. We walked to the workbench where the framed photo of Mara sat next to the old coffee can, full of loose change and spare keys. I picked it up, held it close. Sawyer Kane had taken enough hits in silence. 15 years of building something honest. One night of betrayal. Enough. I set the photo down gently, turned back to my daughter, and whispered more to myself than to her, but loud enough she heard, this time, "I'm not staying quiet." The words hung in the air like smoke. Avery looked up at me, eyes wide, not scared, curious, maybe even a little hopeful. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in years, something inside me felt alive again. And whatever came next, Reid Langford was about to learn what 15 years of quiet really costs. The next morning came too soon. Sunlight sliced through the garage's dirty windows like it had no right to be cheerful. I hadn't slept. Not really. I'd lain on the couch, staring at the ceiling fan until the blades blurred, replaying Reid's laugh in my head. The way he'd said my name like it was a punchline. The way Avery's shoulders had shaken when she finally fell asleep in her room. I made coffee. Black. Strong enough to burn. Avery shuffled out around 7:30, eyes, puffy hair, a mess. She didn't speak at first, just poured cereal she didn't eat. "School today?" I asked, voice careful. She nodded. "Barely. They're still talking about it." I saw the messages. I set my mug down. Hard. The sound cracked the quiet. "You don't have to go." "I do." She looked at me, then fierce for a second. "If I hide, they win." God, she sounded like her mother. I drove her to school in silence. Watched her disappear through the double doors backpack, heavy on her narrow shoulders. A group of kids near the entrance glanced her way, then away. One of them laughed short, mean. My knuckles went white on the wheel. Back at the garage, the first customer of the day was Mrs. Delgado. 82. Sweet as pie. Brought in her old Buick because the brakes were spongy. She always tipped me $5, even when I told her not to. Today she hesitated at the counter. "Sawyer." I saw that video thing on my grandson's phone. Her voice was soft, apologetic. "I don't believe a word of it. You've fixed my car for 20 years. Never once felt cheated." She patted my hand, left the 5 anyway. I thanked her, watched her leave. Then I locked the front door, flipped the sign to closed. I needed to move. First stop, Mr. Leon Vargas's office, 2 blocks over above the hardware store. Small sign, no frills. Leon had been my lawyer since the day Mara passed, helped me sort the medical bills, the will, the nothing we had left. He was 60-something, slow-talking eyes that saw more than people said. I sat across from him in the leather chair that creaked like old bones. I told him everything. The live stream. The views. Avery's tears. Reid's words. I didn't raise my voice once. Leon listened, steepled his fingers, nodded once. "You want to fight this legally defamation business interference?" I shook my head. "No. I want control. For 90 days. I laid it out. Simple. Clean. A temporary transfer of management authority. Maddox Langford Reid's kid would run the garage. Full access. Full responsibility. On paper. But only on paper. Leon raised one eyebrow. Highest I'd ever seen it go. You're setting a trap. I'm setting a lesson. He studied me for a long minute. Then he pulled out a legal pad. Give me 48 hours. I'll draft something ironclad. No loopholes, no comebacks. I left his office lighter. Not happy, just focused. That afternoon, I called Reid. He answered on the second ring, voice smug, like he'd been waiting. Sawyer, didn't expect to hear from you so soon. I kept my tone flat, almost bored. You were right last night. I'm a failure. Stuck. Small time. A pause. I could hear his grin through the phone. Glad you see it? So here's the deal. I leaned against the workbench, staring at the pegboard. I'm handing the garage over to Maddox. 90 days. He runs it. Books. Customers. Everything. If he keeps it profitable, if he proves he's better than me, you win. I'll admit it. Publicly. Silence. Then Reid laughed. Loud, sharp. You serious, dead serious? He didn't even hesitate. Done. Maddox needs the experience anyway. Kid's been slacking. This'll toughen him up. I heard him call out muffled. Maddox. Get in here? I ended the call before the kid could say hello. My hand shook when I set the phone down. Not fear. Something hotter. I spent the next 3 nights moving. After closing, when the streets were empty and the sodium lights buzzed, I loaded my best tools, the snap-on torque, wrenches the lift jacks that still worked, smoothed the diagnostic scanner I'd saved 2 years for into the back of my truck. 40 miles out. An old warehouse off County Road 17. Abandoned since the mill closed in 2009. Door still locked with my padlock from when I stored parts there years ago. I carried crates in the dark. 1 trip. 2. 3. Sweat soaked my shirt. My back screamed. Every box felt like a promise. Every tool I set down felt like reclaiming something stolen. By the 4th night, the new space was ready. Clean enough. Lit with shop lights I'd strung from the rafters. A second life hidden. Gloria Hayes showed up on the 5th night. My only full-time help. 38. Tough. Loyal. Widowed young. She'd been with me since Avery was in diapers. I told her the plan. She crossed her arms. Looked at me hard. You're playing with fire, boss? I know. She studied the empty garage we were leaving behind, the one Maddox would see. Then she nodded once. I'm in. But if that kid wrecks anything, I'm breaking his pretty fingers. I almost smiled. Almost. The morning Maddox arrived was gray. Threatening rain. He pulled up in his father's hand-me-down BMW. Black. Shiny. Spoiler too big for the car. 17. Tall, hair perfect. Sneakers cleaner than my work boots. He walked in like he owned the place already. Hey, Mr. Kane. Smirk. Dad said you're retiring. I handed him the keys. The real ones to the front door. The fake set to the empty toolbox. 90 days. You're in charge. He took them. Jangled them like toys. Cool. Where do I start? I pointed to the lift. Customers coming in at 10. Breaks. You handle it. His smile faltered. Just a second. Then he shrugged. Easy. I watched him walk to the back. Watched him fumble the jack. Watched him try to look confident when Gloria shot him a look that could strip paint. I stayed quiet. Let him feel the weight. Later that afternoon, Avery came home early. Half day. She found me in the office pretending to do paperwork. Dad? Maddox is here. At school, everyone's saying he's taking over your shop. Her voice was small. I looked up. He is? For now? She searched my face. You're okay with that? I reached out, touched her cheek. No, but I'm doing something about it. She didn't ask more. She just sat beside me. We listened to Maddox curse under the hood of Mrs. Delgado's Buick. Listened to Gloria snap at him to stop cross-threading bolts. Listened to the rain finally break against the roof. Inside my chest, the fire burned steady. Not wild, controlled. 90 days. I could wait. I'd waited 15 years already. What was 90 more? The first real day hit Maddox like a misfired spark plug. He showed up at 8 sharp, still in yesterday's designer hoodie hair gelled phone, already in hand like a shield. The garage smelled of fresh coffee and yesterday's brake dust. Gloria was already there, arms crossed, watching him like a hawk sizing up a rabbit. I stayed in the office doorway, arms folded, silent. Maddox cracked his knuckles, tried to look in charge. All right. What's first? Gloria pointed to the lift bay. Mr. Patel's Accord. Needs pads and rotors. Customers waiting. You got this? Maddox nodded too fast. Easy. I've watched Dad do it. He rolled the jack under the car, fumbled the release valve. The lift hissed too loud. He jerked back like it had bitten him. I didn't move. By 10:30, the first disaster landed. He torqued the lug nuts wrong, cross-threaded 2 of them. The wheel wobbled when Mr. Patel test drove it out of the bay. He came back, white-knuckled voice, tight. You trying to kill me, kid? Those nuts are stripped. I could have lost control on the highway. Maddox's face flushed red. He stammered something about double-checking next time. Gloria stepped in, voice low, sharp. You don't double-check after. You do it right the first time. Now we're eating the cost of new lugs and your mistake. Congratulations, boss. She walked away. Left him standing there. I watched from the shadows. Felt nothing. Not yet. The second screw-up came after lunch. A 15 Silverado. Simple oil change. Maddox grabbed the wrong filter, cheap Universal, instead of the OEM spec. Didn't notice until he'd already drained the pan and spun the new one on. When the owner came back for pickup, the engine light popped on the drive home. He returned furious. Oil pressure's dropping. You put garbage in my truck? Maddox tried to argue, voice cracking. It's the same size. It's not the same, the man snapped. I paid for quality. Not this. He left without paying, slamming the door so hard the bell jingled for 10 full seconds. Gloria didn't yell this time. She just looked at Maddox long steady. You're burning through our goodwill faster than you're burning through filters, kid. Maddox's shoulders slumped. Just a fraction. By 3 o'clock, the sun was brutal. 98 degrees in the shade. Asphalt shimmered. Maddox had to rotate tires on a minivan, 4 wheels heavy as sin. No power tools for him today. I'd forgotten to show him where the impact wrench was kept. He knelt on the concrete, sweaty, grunting, hands slipping on the lug wrench, blisters already forming. I watched him struggle for 20 minutes before he finally got the last one off. His shirt was soaked dark, hair plastered to his forehead. Avery came by after school. She'd been avoiding the garage since the handover, but today she lingered near the office door. She saw Maddox on his knees, saw the black streaks across his arms, saw him wipe his face with the back of his hand, leaving a smear of grease. At first, her eyes lit up small, satisfied, a flicker of payback, but it didn't last. By the time he stood wincing, stretching his back, she looked away. Bit her lip. Dad, she whispered when Maddox was out of earshot. He looks wrecked. I didn't answer. She watched him a moment longer. He's not laughing anymore. The real break came at closing. A regular Mr. Torres, retired mechanic himself, brought in his old Jeep for a quick alignment check. Maddox tried to handle it alone, jacked the front end wrong. The Jeep shifted, a jack stand slipped. Metal screamed against concrete. Mr. Torres yanked Maddox back just in time. The kid hit the floor hard, breath knocked out of him. Torres stood over him, face thunder dark. You think this is a game, son? pretending to be a mechanic because your daddy's got money. You almost dropped a ton of steel on your own feet. And mine. Maddox scrambled, hands shaking. I didn't mean, you don't mean to kill somebody. Torres cut him off. Then learn. Or get out. He left without another word. Maddox stood there, chest heaving, eyes glassy. Gloria turned off the compressor. The sudden quiet was deafening. Maddox looked around, saw me in the doorway, saw Avery by the office, saw the empty bays. Then he broke. He walked to the back corner, sat on an overturned crate, pulled out his phone, hands trembling so bad he almost dropped it. I heard the call connect. Dad, his voice cracked, small. I can't do this. They hate me. Everything I touch breaks. I'm not cut out for it. Please. Come get me. Reid's voice came through tinny. Irritated. Man up, Maddox. 90 days. You wanted to play big shot? Now finish it. The line went dead. Maddox stared at the screen. Then quiet, almost inaudible, he started to cry. Not loud sobs, just silent tears cutting tracks through the grease on his cheeks. He didn't see me watching, didn't see Avery step closer, hesitate, then step back again. She looked at me, eyes wide, conflicted. Dad, is this what you wanted? I didn't answer right away. I watched Maddox wipe his face with his sleeve, smearing more black across his skin. Saw the way his shoulders curled in like he was trying to disappear. Saw the boy who'd walked in like he owned the world, and the kid who was left sitting on a crate in the dark. I felt something shift inside me. Not pity, not yet, but something close to recognition. I'd been that kid once, broke, scared, thinking money fixed everything until it didn't. I turned away, walked to the office, shut the door softly. Avery followed me in. She stood there, arms wrapped around herself. He's crying, Dad. I know. Are we going to keep going? I looked out the window, saw Maddox still sitting there, alone. I thought about Mara. The way she used to say, sometimes the hardest lessons hurt the teacher as much as the student. I exhaled. We keep going. Avery swallowed. For how long I didn't answer. I just looked at the calendar on the wall. 89 days left. The question hung between us like smoke. Would Maddox break completely, or would the breaking change him? And if it did, would I still have the heart to keep the secret? The morning of day 89 dawned cold and clear. I woke before the alarm, lay there in the dark, listening to the house, breathe pipes ticking fridge, humming low. Avery was still asleep down the hall. I could picture her curled under the quilt Mara made the one with the faded stars. I dressed quietly. Old work shirt. Boots worn to the shape of my feet. Drove to the garage, the one Maddox thought he owned. It looked worse than ever. Oil stains spreading like bruises across the floor. Tools scattered. A half-finished job on the lift bay, hood-up wires dangling. The air smelled sour burnt coolant and defeat. Reid pulled in at 10 sharp. Black SUV, tinted windows. He stepped out in a crisp polo sunglasses on, even though the sky was gray. Maddox was already there, shoulders hunched, eyes hollow. He hadn't shaved in days. Grease caked under his nails. His hands shook when he tried to wipe them on a rag. Reid clapped him on the back, hard. So, how's the Empire coming along? Son, Maddox didn't answer right away. Just looked at the ground. Lost 2 more customers yesterday, he muttered. They said the work was sloppy. One guy threatened to call the Better Business Bureau. Reid laughed. Short, sharp. That's what happens when you play with the big boys. You learn, or you fold. He turned to the small crowd that had gathered neighbors, a couple regulars who'd stuck around out of curiosity. Gloria leaning against the doorframe with her arms crossed. Reid raised his voice. Performed, 90 days. My kid ran this place, kept it afloat. Better than some people ever did. He glanced at me then. First time he'd looked directly at me since the call. Sawyer Kane, the failure. I stepped out from the office doorway. Slow. Calm. Morning, Reid? He smirked, ready to admit it. I didn't smile back. Instead, I pulled the keys from my pocket. The real ones. The ones to the padlock on County Road 17. Follow me. Reid raised an eyebrow. What a field trip. Something like that? I got in my truck. Reid hesitated, then got in his SUV. Maddox climbed in the passenger seat beside his father. Avery appeared at the last second. She'd driven over early. She slid into my passenger seat without a word. Her hand found mine on the gear shift. Squeezed once. We drove in convoy. 40 miles of quiet highway. Fields turning gold under the weak sun. No one spoke on the radio. The warehouse looked the same from the outside, peeling paint weeds pushing through cracked concrete. I parked, killed the engine, walked to the side door, unlocked it. The overhead lights snapped on, and everything changed. Clean bays, polished lifts, snap-on tools gleaming on the pegboard, the diagnostic scanner humming softly. 3 cars in work, a Mercedes getting timing chain service, a Ford truck with fresh suspension, a classic Mustang waiting for its final tune. Customers. Real ones, talking quietly with Gloria, laughing, handing over keys. The place smelled like fresh oil and possibility. Reid stopped dead in the doorway. Maddox beside him, mouth open. I let them take it in. Gloria looked over, gave me a small nod, then went back to the customer. I turned to Reid. This is the garage, the real one. My voice stayed even, low. Everything you saw on Maple Street. That was the shell. Cheap parts, slow jobs, the dregs I kept on hand for exactly this. I pulled the folded contract from my back pocket, the one Leon Vargas had drafted. Crisp. Official. Maddox ran the shadow operation, the losing side, on purpose, and he still couldn't keep it alive. Reid's face drained, color gone, sunglasses suddenly looked ridiculous. You set this up. I gave you what you asked for. Control. For 90 days. I looked at Maddox then. The kid was staring at the floor, shoulders trembling. You worked hard, I said quietly. Harder than I expected. But you were working on a sinking ship. Because that's what your father built his whole life on, making other people look small so he could look tall. Reid opened his mouth, closed it. No laugh this time. I stepped closer. Not threatening. Just close enough he had to meet my eyes. You taught me a lesson about trust, Reid. About what happens when someone you called brother turns the knife. I paused. Let the words settle. Now I'm teaching you one back. About the value of real work. Real sweat. Real honor. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. Avery moved beside me, slipped her hand into mine again. Her fingers were cold. She looked at Maddox. He lifted his head. Eyes red. Wet. I'm sorry, he whispered. Barely audible. To both of you. Reid flinched like the words had hit him. I folded the contract. Slid it back into my pocket. I'm not taking your money. Or your apology. Not yet. I looked around the shop one more time. The hum of air tools, the quiet talk of customers, the life I'd built when no one was watching. This place, it's mine. Always was. I turned back to Reid. But you're welcome to come back. Anytime. As a customer. Or as someone who wants to learn what it really means to fix something. I didn't wait for an answer. I walked to the workbench. Picked up a clean rag. Wiped my hands, even though they weren't dirty. Avery squeezed my hand tighter. I felt her lean against my shoulder. Reid stood there a long moment. Then he turned, walked out. Maddox lingered, looked at me one last time, then followed his father. The door closed softly behind them. Gloria walked over. Put a hand on my shoulder. Boss, she said quietly. You okay? I exhaled. Long. Slow. Yeah. I looked at Avery. She was crying now. Quiet tears, but smiling through them. I pulled her close, whispered into her hair. It's over, kiddo. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't. Not really. Because the real work, the kind that matters, never ends. It just changes shape. And sometimes, it finally gets seen. The weeks after that day in the warehouse felt like the slow exhale after holding your breath for too long. The old garage on Maple Street stayed closed for good. We never reopened it. The sign came down one gray afternoon. Gloria and I took turns with the screwdriver, neither of us saying much. Just the soft scrape of metal against brick and the occasional clink of screws hitting the bucket. Maddox showed up 3 days later. He parked the BMW at the far end of the lot. Didn't get out right away. Just sat there, hands on the wheel, staring at the building like it might bite him. When he finally walked in, his shoulders were rounded. No gel in his hair. No designer hoodie. Just a plain gray t-shirt and jeans that already had faint grease stains at the knees. He stopped in front of me. Looked at the floor first, then at Avery, who was wiping down a workbench nearby. Then back to me. I'm sorry, he said, voice low. Steady. To both of you. For everything. For the way I acted. For the things I said without thinking. For believing my dad when he said this place was nothing. Avery froze, rag still in her hand. Maddox swallowed. I don't expect forgiveness. I want to learn. For real this time. No pay. No shortcuts. Whatever you'll teach me. I studied him. Saw the blisters that hadn't quite healed yet. The way his eyes didn't dart away anymore. Gloria appeared from the back bay. Arms crossed. But her expression softened just a fraction. I nodded once. Start tomorrow. 6 a.m. sharp. You'll sweep floors, clean tools? Shadow Gloria. No touching a car until I say. He exhaled, like he'd been waiting for the no. Thank you. He turned to Avery. I'm sorry I made you feel small. You didn't deserve that. She looked at him a long moment. Then she nodded. Small, but real. Okay? He left quietly. The next 6 months, Maddox came every day he wasn't in school. Swept. Organized. Learned how to torque a bolt without stripping it. Gloria was tough snapped at him when he slacked, but she started showing him tricks too. The little ones that save hours. The ones you only learn from someone who's done it 10,000 times. He didn't complain once. Reid, though. Word spread. Not because I spread it. I never said a thing. But people talk. Customers who'd left the old shop trickled back, some sheepish, some angry at themselves for believing the noise. They found the new place. Saw the work. Stayed. Reid's showroom started emptying. Reviews turned sour. All flash, no substance. Overpriced. One by one, the big contracts slipped away. I heard he sold the Porsche first, then the boat, then half the inventory just to cover payroll. One evening, about 4 months in, Reid went live again. Same setup. Same lights. But the smile was gone. He looked older. Tired. He cleared his throat. I need to say something. About Sawyer Kane. About what I said before. His voice cracked on my name. I was wrong. Completely. I hurt a good man, a good family, and I hurt my own son in the process. I'm sorry, Sawyer. I'm sorry, Avery. I'm sorry to anyone who listened to me and believed the lie. He paused, looked straight into the camera. I was the one who stayed small, not him. The stream ended abruptly. No excuses. No deflection. Just the truth, raw and quiet. Avery and her friend Talia started something small a month later. A TikTok account. No fancy edits at first. Just phone videos. Avery talking about what real work looks like, hands dirty, back sore, pride earned. Talia adding stories about friends who judged too quick, then learned better. They never named names. never showed faces clearly, just the truth veiled enough to protect us. They talked about spotting real friends, about gratitude for the people who fix things when no one's watching, about how hard labor isn't punishment, it's dignity. The first video got a few hundred views, then 1,000, then 10. By summer's end, 80,000 followers. Kids commenting. My dad works construction. I never thanked him. This made me cry. I was mean to the janitor last week. Avery read the comments every night. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she smiled so wide it hurt to watch. The garage grew. We added a second bay. Hired 2 more hands, young guys hungry to learn. Business was steady, not flashy, just solid. For the first time in my life, there was money left at the end of the month. Not much, but enough. Enough for a college fund for Avery. Enough to breathe. One night in late fall, the garage was quiet. Lights low, tools put away. Avery and I sat on the old rolling stools, the ones with cracked vinyl. She leaned against my shoulder. The air smelled like clean oil and cooling metal. I told her about Mara, how she used to sit right here on slow nights, how she'd laugh at my bad jokes, how she once said quiet, as anything real justice doesn't need to shout Sawyer. It just shows up. And stays? Avery listened, eyes shining. When I finished, she turned to me. Dad. Yeah, kiddo. She wrapped her arms around me. Tight. I'm proud of you. Her voice broke on the last word. I held her. Felt her shoulders shake. Felt my own eyes burn. I didn't say anything back. I didn't need to. Because in that moment, everything that had been broken felt mended. Not perfect, not gone, just mended. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't destruction. It's letting someone really see the value of what they almost threw away, and the value of what they still have, in themselves, in others, in the quiet work that keeps the world turning. I kissed the top of Avery's head, whispered into her hair, "We made it, kid." She nodded against my chest. "Yeah, we did." Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to stay with us to discover more true tales of the Wild West. Stories that honor resilience, tenderness, and the spirit that God placed in those who blazed the trail. Subscribe, share. Leave your thoughts in the comments and join us once again to journey across this untamed land. Thank you. Aviso legal/disclaimer. These stories are crafted purely for entertainment and may contain imaginative additions or dramatic interpretations inspired by old frontier eras. We use AI-based resources, voice imagery, and drafting as part of our creative process, but every final detail is carefully reviewed and shaped by human effort to preserve emotional depth and authenticity. We strictly follow YouTube's rules regarding AI-generated content and refrain from deepfakes, altered identities, or misleading representations. All images, sounds, and related materials are lawfully obtained. Please do not reuse, modify, or distribute any portion of this content without written permission. Thank you for valuing creativity, respect, and original work.